want to leave. And I would encourage them to even, and for us perhaps, to put forth a package about why we could put good, clean manufacturing on tribal land within the state of California even, and have it be a local economic growth engine for us. So the other point is that business cannot afford, small business cannot afford. And I remember when Cindy and I had the restaurant, you know, a lot of you have been around as long as I have. I see Kay down there. Kay Hayes has been here, I think, longer than I have. But, you know, 25 years ago, every summer, we rolled up the sidewalks. We closed our businesses in August, July, August, September. People, you put, you know, gone fishing signs in our windows. You don't see that too much anymore. And that's a really good sign that out here we are growing. But I remember those days that when we stayed open because we didn't want to lose our employees over the summer. We wanted to keep our waiters and our kitchen staff and keep them employed. But we had to struggle to get by. And I can tell you this, though, if my tax bill had been higher at that point in time, I would have had to pay the tax man before I could pay my employees, so I would have had to close my business. So I understand firsthand what that would have done. And if that happens even in Palm Springs, where people have higher tax burdens in the summer months, you can see a little bit more of these sorts of problems. So I recognize what higher taxes on small business will do. It's not the way to go. Actually, less taxes is the way to go, without a doubt, and people would actually hire more employees and not worry about the tax man showing them how to do it. And last thing, I just want to say a little bit about taxes. This is that wonderful time of year where those of us who are prepared are happy to be done with doing our taxes. More of my friends are still actually worrying about what they're doing today as they're doing their taxes. But as a member of Congress, I've seen at least one senior cry to me, not because he had to pay the taxes, but because of how complicated it is to do his tax return, and what the burden was for him, and how overwhelmed he was. This was an 80-year-old man. And to talk about that, how intimidating and overwhelming it is. So streamlining and simplifying the tax code would also go a long way, I think, for all of us, small businesses as well as individuals. And thank you for being there yesterday at the town hall. I appreciate that very much. Yes, sir. Oh, you get a microphone.
Oh, thank you. Mary, I'd just like to say, I'd like to compliment you, first of all, on the prescription drug laws that you're trying to enact, because I wanted to remind everyone, Ryan Leaf, I don't know if anybody knew him, he was the #2 draft pick in the NFL. He had an article in the paper recently, was arrested in Montana, and it wasn't just because of his addiction to prescription drugs, but he'd also committed lots of burglaries at the time. So the problem does manifest itself in many levels, so that's important. But I have questions about, we talk about jobs are #1, but the future of those jobs comes with the education of our children. And I think a lot of things happen in Washington that sometimes handicap us or handcuff us here at the local level. And I was just wondering about the No Child Left Behind, where you see that going in the future, and other mandates that sometimes come to us at the state level that don't get funded at the federal level, and how we can better receive some of that funding, because schools today are really strapped for cash.
Well, No Child Left Behind was a noble attempt, but it was really more of an attempt to solve a political problem, not truly address education. There is a huge clamor to increase our, thank you, Daniel, to increase our education, the level, all across the board, especially technology. People in the tech sector really struggling to find engineers to get kids through our schools and passionate about the sciences and technology. But I have to tell you the truth, I have a really hard time with the federal government in control of education anyway. I think that parents and teachers should decide. When we moved to California 48 years ago, part of the reason my parents moved here was because the school systems were so great, and they were different. Our school systems were great because there was a local focus on them, and it made them, they were so much better than some of those around the country. I think we need to get back to that a little bit more. I think put parents and teachers in charge, empower school boards to make decisions, and to get the bureaucrats out of the way. In Washington, D.C., if you give a bureaucrat money and ask them to then come up with regulations and then to send the money back home again, all you're doing is getting rules and losing some of your money along the way. It's hard for me, though, because I truly believe in that. The reason it's hard for me, and I have to walk the walk here, a lot of folks in the recovery world come to me with their curriculum, their suggested curriculum, their video that they've come up with, their documentary, Gee Mary, can you get this into every school in America for me? And I have to let them down when I say, no, you need to go to your local school board and talk to them and engage your local school board. Because if you think about, talk about the education level and how to improve the academics, but if you liken that to the drug problem, and you instead say, if your school board doesn't care about it, isn't passionate about it, and that's, you know, who parents need to really work closely with and make passionate about it, you're certainly not going to get a bureaucracy to do it in Washington, D.C. So for me, no child left behind. I would rather instead do all I can to empower our local school boards to make the decisions. And you know what? Sometimes they might make mistakes. Absolutely. But when they do, then the parents ought to be able to walk into that school board meeting and make a difference and say, this has to change. My child matters. And I think the worst thing that we've done as a society over the past 40 years is to tell people, you can't go to your school board and make a difference. I mean, how many of you have ever gone to a school board meeting? All the electeds. Not all, some on the left. But other people were involved with public health or whatever. But for a parent to think that your only answer is in Washington, D.C. for your child's education, it's just wrong. It's entirely wrong. So I would like to do the opposite. And I'll continue to say, and even walking the walk with my drug education efforts, I'm starting with my local school boards. And that's what I want to strengthen. So I would rather quit sending the money to Washington. I'd rather Washington quit sending us the mandates. And I'd like to keep the money and the efforts and the focus here locally.
Amen. Yeah.
Well, thank you. Good morning.
Quickly, we're in very challenging times. I mean, we had our city council meeting last night in La Quinta, and because of the redevelopment change with the state, our capital budget going from $65 million to $15 million down to $1 million to maintain our city. And when you look at the reality of the state, the nation, what excites you, besides your grandchild, what excites you to get up every day and want to fight the fight and do the battle? And how do you feel accomplished at the end of the day, a week, a month, given the situation and the hope for improvements in jobs and economy and housing and survival and being a player in this world?
What excites me?
Yes.
Is the basic question about getting up and doing what I do. Well, first of all, the drug thing, I know we're making a difference. I know that in Congress I have 434 colleagues in the House of Representatives, and I know that 434 of them are focused on the budget and gas prices, as they should be. There are issues that we all care about, national security, we don't talk enough about these days, the war on terror, cybersecurity. But I can tell you this, I think I'm the only one talking about the drug issue. And when you're the only one talking about it, when you see you're making a difference, it feels pretty good. Secondly, I believe that at this point, I'm passionate and excited that I think our country is at a crossroads. I think we are at a point now where we can see whether big government programs and solutions are the answer or whether we need to empower ourselves locally. The RDA money is a perfect example. How do you feel as a city council when your money is being taken away and sent to Sacramento? Is it better for your citizens, or is it harder? Well, the federal government's even worse. And it's the same thing. The state is a small example of what will happen with Washington and what is happening. The difference is the state cannot borrow money. The federal government can. So the state can come after your redevelopment money today. The federal government is going after our children's money by leveraging their futures. And that is the big difference. So if we can sort of compare that RDA money and how you feel as the person closest to the people on the city council, and then extrapolate that up to the federal level, you'll see how insidious it is and how we need to change things. And I don't care what city you're representing, whether you're in the county, but we're all faced with this. And it's hardest for people who have to say directly to people's faces, I'm sorry, I can't provide a service for you anymore because Sacramento needs the money. So that, I'm passionate about that. And I'll say this. I am so passionate about this that my husband is running for the United States Senate in Florida. I haven't seen him in 3 weeks. He looked at this opportunity. I think Florida is critically important in this battleground. I think it's going to be important for the presidential race. The polling data was wide open for him. And he said to me, we were really hard on this as a couple. And I said, it's worth it. Everything is on the line right now. in our country, absolutely everything. And if we don't change the direction of our country and give people what they want, that is a truly efficient federal government where we're secure, where our interests are secure around the globe, but then let's go about our business every day. You know, I think it's worth it. So he's fighting his fight in Florida, and fighting my fight here. But our children have now seen, I think, they recognize the RDA example is the best example we can possibly use. Our money grab is just hidden because we're borrowing it. So thank you for what you do. I know I'm going to do one more because I've got to be boring the heck out of you guys. But yes, sir.
Good morning. My name is Mario. Welcome. Being born and raised for Mary, I'm welcoming the challenges. But I just want to say that there's a lot of positive things that we need to really take a look at as well. You know, Edward mentioned about, we've all had friends and families that have lost their homes. But on the upside, we also have 800 to 1,000 homes being bought a month here in the Coachella Valley. And it gives us an opportunity to embrace a lot of wonderful people that are buying homes. And that is going to make a difference in our economy. So if we can encourage people to, you know, really do well in their business, to, you know, basically embrace people from Canada, from all over the world that's buying homes, I think that is going to make a difference. You know, I have 5 educators in my family too that teach in schools, and they have their challenges, you know, having 40 kids in the classroom, and we all face these different challenges. My parents are getting over prescriptions too, and we have to keep an eye on them as well. And you know, every day has its challenges, but I know that every morning I get up and I want to make a difference in my community. And so if we just do that and give it our best, I believe we'll make a difference.
I love that statement. Thank you. I think recognizing the American dream and celebrating it is so important. And I thank you for that statement, because you're right. And especially we as a community, and I'll just close on this. I'll close on that. I was going to say that what I love about our communities, for the most part, we all work together so well. And you know, I've always said that we're like a baseball team. We have different positions on this team, but we work together well. And we might not always agree on policy and all of this stuff. But I would say that we do drive our community forward, and we see a lot of progress. And yes, there are setbacks, no doubt about it, but there's a lot of good to talk about. Thank you for your sunny disposition. You'd think that we were at a Rotary Club meeting with that comment, not the chamber. Okay, yes.
Mary, my name is Rose Tijerina Swearingen, and I've been in the field of recovery and addiction for just about 35 years. I really like that you're passionate about the drug problem that we have in our communities and our world today. But you know, the most important thing for me, as I think of what we're going through right now, is that our children are our focus for the future. And our children are not getting that foundation. You know, I wish that along with what you're saying and what you're offering us in the help that you're giving us, that, you know, I always said, I worked at the Betty Ford Center for 10 years before opening up my own business in Palm Springs, the Life's Journey Center. And I always said, I wish that the Betty Ford Center would implement their children's program in every school throughout the nation. Why? Because the children would get the foundation that you today are working on addressing with adults. I know that adults are important, but I believe that children, again, are our future, and we need to look at that. Thank you, Mary.
Thank you. Another example of, let's start with the local school board. You know, as school boards around the country, if we succeed with our children here, other school boards around the country will duplicate what we do. So I look forward to working with you and taking it to our school boards and seeing how they think that we can help with our kids.
Thank you.
That'd be really important. All right, the last question. Thank you both. It's been so patient.
Hi.
By the way, I don't care if it's the last question. I would assume you guys want it to be the last question, but I'll go on as long as you want me to. So.
Hi, Rose. Remember me?
Yes, I do.
My name is Norma Rashida, and I used to supervise a treatment center years back. That's how I met Rose. And now, not only was I a supervisor, I was also a therapist with clients that came in, and it was a treatment center for opiates, prescription drugs. It was, my question to you is, during your plan that you have for the prescription drugs, what I used to see that it was very depressing for me, that I couldn't do it anymore, seeing how many people overdose and die under prescription drugs. And what I found when clients would come in, they will have the same prescriptions with different doctors and different pharmacists. So and then they were through Medi-Cal, and that's how they were selling the drugs outside. So in your plan, is there going to be a connection that this is a prescription drug, but if they go try to see like 4 or 5 doctors regarding the same prescription, is there going to be a block in somewhere in the computer system that no, you provided this already, you're not going to have this again? I was just curious.
There are a lot of efforts in Washington, D.C. That are supporting what we call prescription drug monitoring programs. Anybody who actually tries to go to get your prescriptions filled who are on private insurance know that if you try to fill a prescription too soon, your insurance company will reject you. In the addiction world, because a lot of times it is funded sometimes by the Medicare Part D or Medi-Cal, there are loopholes there. California, we don't have a real-time prescription drug monitoring program. It exists, but it's 2 weeks. It takes 2 weeks for the system to get caught up, which is ridiculous. Because we know that, right now I can buy something on my iPad and charge it instantaneously, and the credit card company will know right away. And we can do it if we decide to do it. We also know, today I take my Claritin D, it has pseudoephedrine in it, and if you want to buy anything with Sudafed in it, you have to give your driver's license to do it. We have to do it, but we're not going to make that change if we don't raise the awareness that people are dying from these drugs. And so doctors shall be part of the answer is going to be paying for the prescription drug monitoring programs. The important thing from these physicians are beginning to participate. Yesterday we had 2 doctors who were there in our town hall meeting. This is not a punitive approach to doctors to say, bad view, you better check them. This is not a holistic approach. That a doctor ought to be able to look at the whole host of prescriptions that they're writing for somebody to see if they're being overprescribed or if they have a dangerous combination. Yesterday, Dr. Hartunian from the Betty Ford Center talked about a dangerous mix of alcohol and opiates. People go to sleep and they never wake up.
That's what I saw. My job as a supervisor was sending the files to the board. It was pretty depressing. So, that's why I had to put that into private practice.
I thank you both for everybody who works in this effort, because it is sometimes a thankless job. But we're over 30,000 deaths a year right now in America. And probably since I've been speaking this morning, 8 people have died in America from this. And I know that we can make a difference by keeping the people off of these drugs. And secondarily, especially here on the border, and by the way, I've talked to President Calderon about this. I've talked to President Santos in Colombia about this. Because of the opiate problem here, which is prescription drug-based, the kids, everybody, I shouldn't just say the kids, they move off of the prescription drugs and move on to heroin. Heroin trafficking out of Latin America is on the increase. The violence of heroin trafficking will be on the increase. I told President Calderon that I agree with him that the demand in America needs to be reduced. He can't fight the fight alone. We need to help them by having a demand reduction in America. If we don't, we see nothing but bad times ahead.
And I agree with what Rose said. Children need to be educated in schools because they just grow up and they're doing the same thing over and over again. It's pretty sad, but thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you. All right. Who hasn't asked me yet? This is itching to ask.
Hi, good morning. My question is more in regards to immigration, since the topic came up. We happen to know the ratio between those that cross illegal and those that overstay their visas?
I don't know the ratio.
Okay. Just to give you an idea, for every 1 illegal that crosses, there's 3 that overstay their visas. So you don't think that should be an issue that should be addressed? I know you said that we should reinforce the borders, but what about the airports and the seaports?
No, I did say that.
And I know you said that, but when you agree that the federal government should be looking at those that overstay their visas as well?
Oh, of course. That's the whole problem. Many of the people overstay their visas, and I would point out, although most people are quick to say that it's Latinos primarily, but I would also say that there are a lot of illegal Brits and Canadians and you name it who overstay their visas. you know, you change the focus to terrorist-based visas, people who are now coming to America, believe it or not, on student visas who have linked to Al-Qaeda. So we have had to wake up to the whole issue of immigration and to sort of change our thinking. If you look at the Millennium Plot, at the turn, when, you know, when we turned from 1999 to 2000, there was a serious, wait, what was the New Year's? It was the Millennium Plot. And that border breach was in Seattle. So, you know, we have to really look at all of the borders, and of course visas are a huge part of it. I mean, if somebody is here illegally because they've overstayed their visa or they've crossed illegally, it's the same thing. They both need to be addressed. You know, I would just say oftentimes my congressional office helps people who have a problem with immigration. I'd like to introduce Claudia Flores if anybody doesn't know Claudia. Claudia is a great asset to my office, and she's working hard to make sure people know that my office is there to assist with immigration issues. We work on any, you know, tax issues, veterans issues, any problem dealing with the federal government. We are there to assist people who have visa problems legitimately. So just remind people to never hesitate to give us a shout. But of course, we would look at that.
Thank you.
All right. Well, I just want to, oh, one more. Okay. I should never say one more.
One more. Hi, my name is John Paul Valdez, and I'm a local economist, and I comment often in the news and so forth. I just wanted to say on the, how do you balance, for example, you were saying, we live in a tourist town here, in a resort town, and so it is my personal belief as an economist that the more, you know, responsible visa allowance you give, the more economy you can bring to the town, right? On the other hand, you want to restrict those to keep out Al-Qaeda terrorists and all the bad guys, right? So how do you balance giving out more visas and restricting them?
That's a great question. It's a State Department issue, and I actually have talked to Secretary Clinton about this, because she does care deeply about how we do that, recognizing the hurdles that people face who want to legitimately come to America to see the country, and those who don't want to. There's a lengthy interview process that they go through. I think, again, we're counting on bureaucrats to do their job and to do it right, to figure out who is good to come in and who is not. And I cannot comment necessarily on what it's like to be one of those individuals doing the interview, but I do know that it's much more extensive than it used to be. And oftentimes people complain because it's a big burden. And so I don't know if we've gotten it quite right yet, but I do know that the State Department and